Hello, everybody. This is the Unwaste Time podcast, and for those who don't know me, this is my evil plan to take over the world. Just kidding. If you've clicked on this video, then congratulations and welcome to taking the first step in unwasting time. And that's realizing that you spend way too much time distracted or procrastinating. Personally, it is something that has been bothering me for such a long time. It has been keeping me stuck on square zero, unable to go through with my promises, and constantly pushing the deadlines on my goals. This is where the Unwaste Time podcast comes in. The idea behind this podcast is to make all the information and research on productivity and discipline available to you all in one place here. So, without further ado, let's jump into the number one reason that 99% of people end up wasting time. Having no plan equals instant distraction. There is a quote that goes, "If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail." And that is because the easiest way to end up wasting your day is by starting it without a plan. Personally, when I wake up, be it at 6 or at 9 a.m., I will always have a rough list of things that I need to get done that day. But if I don't necessarily have a plan, then it's so much easier for me to get distracted, take a longer lunch break, or just spend much more time and attention working on something that the actual task requires of me. So, in conclusion, having a to do list doesn't necessarily mean that you have a plan, especially if that list is longer than two or three bullet points. Because when the choice is between two things, it's easy, right? It's one or the other. When we're talking about three variables, the brain will tend to sort them depending on hardest to easiest or fastest to longest to do. And we'll tend to pick the one in the middle because it keeps things balanced. When you add just one more variable into the game, and the way our brain makes decisions changes drastically. It takes longer, there are more doubts, and it can cause decision fatigue. The premise behind that is that the more decisions you make, the more fatigued you become. And so the more propense you will be to putting things off and procrastinating by saying, "I'll figure that out later." The only solution for this is to structure your day the night before. Really look at your to do list and decide which are the tasks you're going to be starting with and what are the tasks that are going to require more time and focus from you. Stick to that plan and adjust if necessary because we all get those unexpected life situations, but never drift unless absolutely necessary. The second, and also one of the greatest reasons you literally make zero progress, is when you have too many priorities. This issue also stems in your to do list and how you handle your workload. It is scientifically proven we can only truly focus on a set number of things during the day without being overwhelmed. So, really being honest with yourself as to what your priorities are today is key to making some progress. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you don't have a plan from the night before, and your to do list is 10 bullet points long. I will guarantee you that you'll be constantly shifting focus, jumping from one thing to the other, and not getting anything done. All the while, each task that you leave unfinished is going to be leaving residue in the brain, making it harder and harder to accomplish the next one. So once you sit down to write that plan the night before, be really honest with yourself and pick one or three things that are going to make the most impact in your life if you get them done tomorrow. And it can be work related or it can be something like going to the gym for an hour or cooking your own healthy dinner. Another way of looking at it is if you get those two or three priority tasks done and absolutely nothing else on that list, then the day would have still been a success. Your real priorities can either show up in your daily actions or they can shine through your regrets a decade later, and it's completely your choice. So, to recap the solution, set 1 to 3 priority tasks per day, and if they get done, then nothing else matters. Huge goals equal paralysis. The third reason is a mistake a lot of people tend to make, and that is setting huge, ginormous goals for themselves and then just going, "Whoa, wouldn't it be great if I could do that this year?" That's the New Year's Eve paradox. And just to be clear, I am not criticizing ambition or big dreams and telling you to think small. But big goals can be overwhelming, it's a fact. And this person will then go on with their life with this dream just floating around in their head, and they will just magically expect to accomplish it by the end of the year without having an actual plan or knowing what it takes. Yes, they might occasionally find a spot of free time in their busy routine, sit down and jot down some bullet points, but then that list just gets abandoned next to their computer, and they will justify their inaction by saying, "Oh, well, I just have to think about it a little more." before I actually do something, and it never gets done. Because the problem with big goals isn't that they're too ambitious or impossible to achieve. The problem is if you don't break them down, that they will just stay in your head instead of becoming reality. I'll make a personal example. As a writer, after 2 years of walking around with this idea for a book in my head, outlining, changing character names, and just waiting to be ready, I finally decided this enough was enough. Okay? I knew that I had to write 100,000 words, so I gave myself a deadline of 3 months. Right? That's 33,000 words a month. Try as you might, you cannot do it at the last moment. But if you just divide that into daily actions, that's just 1,000 words per day. And writing 1,000 words a day, every day, for the next 3 months is a great example of a SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. For those of you who don't know what SMART goals are, let me explain. Specific means you have to specify what it is exactly that you have to do. How you will do it and where you will do it is also really useful. Measurable, you can achieve that by adding a metric or number to the goal. For me, that's 1,000 words. Achievable and realistic asks you to take into consideration your own capabilities as well as the deadline and the results that you have set out to achieve for yourself. And actually ask yourself, is this possible? Like, can I do this in this set amount of time and get the results that I want? And time bound is basically asking you to give yourself a deadline. By breaking down your goals using this system, it basically guarantees that you will achieve them. Setting SMART goals gives you a sense of direction. It helps you with accountability and timing because now you'll be fighting back with consistent daily actions that you can actually track. Number 4, focusing on success versus finding the need to change. I often get caught up in my fantasies as if I am already living the life of my dreams. Be it daydreaming, staring into empty space, or manifesting, call it whatever you want, but it's still equal to not taking action. If you desire health, love, and accomplishment, but you're too focused on the end result of becoming that successful entrepreneur and what you're gonna do with all the money that you plan on making from that business that you haven't started yet, then that is exactly what you risk doing: never starting. Knowing where you're going and what it is that you want in life is super important. But if anything supersedes purpose, it's taking action. That dream should act like a powerful motivator, but it would not get you to where you want to go on its own. Instead of fantasizing about the future, focus on where you are right now. And I know this might come off as a little pessimistic, but actually look around and find the things that make you want to change your current reality the most. Is it the car you drive, or the neighborhood that you live in, or the lack of money for fancy restaurants? Whatever it is, find it and obsess over it. Because if you start paying real close attention to the success stories of all the wealthy, rich, famous people around the world, you will see that most of them come from a background of coming from nothing or having no choice but to change. And the problem is, the majority of middle class, high school educated people that live in first world countries, such as myself, is that we don't have that crystal clear need for change. We're comfortable. We have a house, we have food and water, and we probably have a job that pays us enough money for that Friday night dinner and that vacation once a year. So we need to create that need by using all and any means at our disposal. So, to recap, switch out your fantasies of success for your obsession over what is wrong with your life right now. And I promise you, you will start doing something about it. By now, we discussed everything on how to break down your goals and how to structure your days in a way to make the most out of your time. And now it's time to talk about all the things that will inevitably try to steal your focus and sometimes succeed at it. Number 5 is social media and comparison. People share really cool stuff online. There is no point in denying that that is the world that we live in. So get inspired, learn, and engage. It's called social media for a reason. I know most of us can't imagine a time where there wasn't a YouTube or an Instagram or a TikTok. But the first social media founders created social media as a way to make new friends. Back then, Internet was a new development, and so were mobile phones. So the only thing that you had was literally a home phone and a logbook where you kept all of the contacts of your friends, your colleagues, and your family. That's it. So people would actually go into the public libraries to use their computers and log into their respective social media accounts. Because for the first time in history, you could get to know someone from the other side of the globe with just having to touch a keyboard. Obviously, social media is not what it used to be. All of the interfaces have been upgraded to capture as much of our attention as possible. So just become a little more aware of how much time you spend scrolling through social media every day. One thing that has worked for me has been setting a time limit for how long I can spend mindlessly scrolling on the social media app. So, for instance, Instagram is the app that I use the most, and I have a 30-minute a day time limit set for how much time I can spend scrolling or texting with people on Instagram. Now, you would think that is a reasonable amount of time to dedicate to mindless scrolling through social media, but the statistics on how much people actually spend on social media are staggering, okay? On average, people spend 143 minutes a day on social media. That's 2 hours and 23 minutes. Whereas teenagers spend somewhere between 4.1 and 4.8 hours on social media every day, with girls spending an average 1 hour more than boys do. These are devastating statistics. But they're obviously true because in the past couple of years, social media has become a master at giving us what we want, and that's fast, cheap, and easy dopamine hits. It's why when you go into the discovery bar of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you will get to see all of the things that you've previously liked or showed an interest in because the algorithm predicts a positive reaction from you. And this brings us to reason number 6 that people waste time. Easy dopamine hits must be avoided at all costs. It's why we enjoy scrolling through social media so much and why we find it so engaging and relaxing because we're getting free pleasure out of doing basically no work at all. But according to Dr. Ann Lemke, the author of Dopamine Nation, be it sugar, social media, sex, or alcohol, the response in our brain is the same. It produces the feel good chemical known as dopamine, which brings on feelings of pleasure and motivation. But then it is quickly followed by pain or a calm down, which is there in order to keep us motivated. As Dr. Lemke explains, this balancing seesaw of pain and pleasure made sense in the time of early humans when we had to constantly be searching for our basic needs, shelter, food, water, which were only achieved through hard work and endurance. But in the modern life, we live in a life of abundance, not scarcity. And our brains weren't evolved for the fire hose of dopamine, of sugar, social media, TV. Never mind pleasure being so easily achieved. Like it's at the tip of our fingers. And if anything, it's bad because easy dopamine is followed by a serious lack of it. But because it is now so easily accessible, we just go back to scrolling. And when we're repeatedly exposed to the things that give us pleasure, our brains adjust. And eventually, we need more and more just to feel normal or not in pain. Now, how do we avoid that? We need to start with a dopamine fast. Take a 30-day break from whatever it is that causes you pleasure. This doesn't mean that you're gonna go cold turkey forever. It just means that for that first 30 days, it's a lot easier to cut out an addictive behavior entirely and then reintroduce it little by little every single day in small, moderated increments. Now, let's skip to number 7, the exciting new opportunity. New offer, dream collab. It feels like a jackpot until it pulls you away from your goals. I know this better than anyone, and in writer jargon, the exciting new opportunity are called pull-up bunnies, okay? It's those new story ideas that appear out of nowhere and refuse to leave your head. And everybody gets them. The difference is what you decide to do with them. An advice that I've gotten a lot is to write that idea or plot story or thought down in a notebook or in my phone so that I just don't forget it and I don't have to stress about it later. And just leave it for a future moment in time when you are free to revisit it. So, what happens
If the idea just refuses to leave your brain, it stays in there and you just can't get any work done because you're keep constantly thinking about this new thing. Okay, well, in that case, the only thing that you can do is carve out a window of work, be it in the morning or an entire whole day, where you just sit down and you work on that idea. You jot down notes, bullet points, you look at the chances that it has of basically succeeding or being profitable, and then you decide what to do with it. Feeling like you're missing out on opportunities is so normal and it happens to everyone. And it can also happen when we compare ourselves to people in our own real lives that are richer, happier, or just appear to be that way to us. Just like with social media, comparing yourself with someone isn't always good for you. So, here are two aspects about comparison that everyone should know. Number one, if that person is not where you want to be, then you should never compare yourself to them. Yes, they might be rich, successful, and powerful, but if you don't want to be the CEO of an oil company, a famous musician, or a stock trader, then what's the point? Because you're not going to learn anything from their journey that is going to help you in yours. The second word of wisdom is never compare your chapter 1 to somebody's chapter 20. Why? Because if that person is where you want to be right now, then that means that some years ago they were walking the same path that you are right now. And when they were on their chapter 1 or 2 or 3 or 5, when they were your age, they were going through the same things that you are right now. Next time that you feel like you're missing out on new opportunities, work through this framework, okay? And stop getting distracted and instead focus on your daily hard work. Because if you keep doing that, your consistent actions will stack on top of each other. Reason number 8, overcommitting, or in other words, not knowing how and when to say no. This is one of the major reasons that people are drawn from their life path. And this can be applied across all areas of our lives, starting with taking that extra shift because your colleague asked you really nicely, or quitting your career because your father needs you to come and work with him on a family business. Imagine this. Your coworker has a little kid who just got sick with the flu and he just needs to go home and take care of it. Your father is an elderly man that has built this family business from the bottom to the top and has worked in it all his life, but now he's getting older and he needs help. Both sound like legitimate reasons to help, right? Because they are. The moment that those situations turn into a problem is when they become repetitive. Because saying yes to something will always mean saying no to something else. Just like with dopamine, life is all about balance. We only get 24 hours a day, 8 of which we spend sleeping, another 8 of which we spend working. 3 hours go to eating and hygiene. That means that we're left with roughly 5 hours a day. 5 hours a day that we can choose to spend with our family, our friends, or working on building our future wealth. And whenever you're choosing to help bring other people's dreams to life, you're slowly but steadily burying your own. So, why do we say yes? And the answer for most people will be because we are so afraid of being seen as selfish, of disappointing others, or of conflict. Okay, I have friends that will literally start shaking at the first semblance of a conflict. That's how afraid they are of arguing. Which is why the majority of people, just like them, will take the path of least resistance. Sometimes it's the guilt or fear of being rejected by that person simply by saying no. But instead of focusing on what we might lose if we say no, why don't we look at what we are to gain? Time. Every time that something new pops up on your schedule, ask yourself this: is doing this thing going to help me reach my goals? Or is it deterring me from doing the work that actually matters? Because going out with your friends every Friday night just to fit in, or staying up too late scrolling and texting through social media, is doing you no favors. And the fatigue that comes with that can be avoided simply by getting your priorities straight and then making those priorities align with your actions. So, learning how to say no is probably going to be the number one most important tool for people watching this video. Because if it's not a hell yes,
then it's a no thank you. And this brings me to the last point of this video. Wrong crowd equals wrong focus. Your five closest influences determine who you become, how you think, how much money you make, and what you do after work. Everything. These five people that are closest to you are essential to determine what it is you focus your time on. Admittedly, it is somewhat out of our control until we reach a certain age, like 15, 18, or 20. But I think no matter the age, everybody has the moment of hesitation where they realize that they no longer belong to their old crowd, that they're different, and that when asked, why are you friends? You just go, what do you mean? Well, we've been friends all of my life. We're just friends. Why are you asking? But the sad truth is that not everyone has big goals or the desire to put in the work necessary to achieve them. And following the crowd simply to maintain the illusion of belonging will lead to your failure. Yes, biologically, we're hardwired to seek out a tribe, to belong into a community, because historically, being part of a pack has lengthened our lifespan and made survival much easier. But here are some 2025 statistics for you. Economic mobility around the whole world has taken a hit. And by that I mean that less than half of 30-year-olds are earning more than their parents did at their age. Whereas in all the earlier generations, 90% were earning more than their parents at age 30. Less and less people can afford to put themselves through school, and I'm not even talking about buying a home or even a car. But I know that by age 28, my parents were already building their dream house, and their friends had achieved that by 25. Whereas at that age, most of us now are still renting out rooms in shared apartments. But according to a recent study published in the science magazine called Nature, one key factor to earning more in adulthood comes from how and where you grew up in childhood, and it is not what you think. Data suggests that if poor children were to grow up with the same economic connectedness as a typical wealthy child, their incomes as adults would have been an average of 20% higher. The researchers found that the so called economic connectedness refers to having some sort of relationship with wealthy people during their formative years, and is the single strongest predictor of upward mobility identified to date. This is a difference between kids from low income families that lived in similarly poor communities and those that live close to rich and wealthy people, those that went to high school with wealthy kids, or even those that simply mowed the lawns of the rich people during the weekends. Take a look at your childhood and see if this study applies to you. But whether it does or it doesn't, it just means that you have to work harder and be more mindful about the people that are part of your innermost circle. Because if you hang around dancers, I'll guarantee that you will dance. And if you hang around drug addicts, then you will become a drug user. Surround yourself with people that are chasing their own dreams, people that want to succeed, people that have really interesting lives, people that are successful at doing what they do, and they want you to be successful too. So let's recap the 9 reasons that we tend to waste time. Number one, it's having no plan leads to instant distraction. So structure your day from the night before. Number two, having too many priorities means that you will make zero progress. Set 1 to 3 priorities a day, and if they get done, then nothing else matters. Number three, too big tasks drive to a paralysis because you don't know where to start, you don't know what to do, which is why you have to break down your goals using the SMART methodology and then set deadlines and achievable metrics. Number four, dream versus need. You have to stop fantasizing about your success and actually create the need that is going to make you change the situation that you're in right now and help you achieve that dream life that you fantasize about. Number five, social media and comparison. Well, I think everything's clear there. Just be really mindful about it and avoid it if you can. Number six, easy dopamine hits. Again, restrict the amount of time that you spend on social media or on, I don't know, playing video games or eating sugar. and realize if you are really having a problem with that, do the 30-day detox thing. Number 7, the plot bunny phenomenon. Do not go chasing exciting new opportunities, no matter how enticing they look or feel, because they're not gonna get you anywhere. And if you allow yourself to do it once, then you're gonna do it again and again and again. So every time you get a new idea, you're gonna be like, no, I was so wrong about this before. This is what I should be doing. And then you switch careers and then you jump courses, and this can go on for years and years and years on end. Number 8, overcommitting or not knowing how to say no. Everything's clear there, just learn how to say no and stick to making your dreams come true instead of working in order to make other people's dreams reality. Number 9, wrong people around you will drive you to focus on the wrong things. So instead of doing what all of the people around you are doing, do your own thing, and then the people that connect with that will appear in your life. I am so done with setting out to do something and never finishing it, constantly getting distracted and procrastinating. And if you are too, then this channel is for you. Learning about habits, routines, goals, money, productivity, and multitasking is the path to success. Because right now, everything around you is set out to steal your time. So, like, comment, subscribe, and get off of social media. Go on, turn that phone off right now.